All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Lynn Fairley, and she is going to be our moderator. Let's welcome her.
Thank you very much. I'm Lynn Fairley. Some of you know me from my radio show on KVTA, News Talk Radio here in the area. It's my great pleasure to be here this evening. Are there any community leaders in the audience that we're unaware of? Anybody we need to? No? All right. Okay. I want to explain to you how this event is going to proceed. But first I want to tell you we're being filmed. This video will be online, and we hope it goes viral because it's essentially a template for what all the other communities across the nation will have an option to copy. So you will be on film. If you come up and you have a question and you want an answer, you will come to one of these two microphones right here. If you do that, know that you're going to be on film. You will have to sign a release, and you would do that back toward the sound booth there with a gentleman by the name of Tony who will take your release. If you do not want to be on film, I regret you won't be able to approach the microphones and ask a question. But you will be on YouTube, perhaps the website, if you do come up. And you'll just be showing your support to the rest of the nation if you do that. Okay, we also have registration forms. Lots of forms, as a matter of fact. The whole reason you're here is because of the forms. So make sure you turn all those registration forms in at the end of the evening. You're going to hear a lot more about the forms in a few minutes. As well, as you listen to the speakers, since the questions and answer period's at the end, kindly jot down your questions during this lecture, or this meeting as it were, so that you don't forget what they are. Okay? You won't be coming up until the very end, until we tell you when that happens. Okay, I'd like to introduce all the panelists. Dr. Walt Chappell is on my far right. Mr. Brad Dacus in the middle, who just made it here. And Tony Dolce, I think you all know Tony. All right, they're our panelists for this evening. We are starting with, thank you. Welcome, Dr. Chappell. Now, he has a lot to say. He's going to have 15 minutes, and I'm going to keep track of that, and you may go over like a minute or two, but because we got started late, we're going to try and stick to the time frame, okay?
I can see she has me on a short leash, so you folks are going to have to bear with me as we go through a number of things here. I really appreciate that introduction. I didn't expect it to be that long, I'm sorry. But when you start teaching in 1963 and you carry on for another 50 years or so, you've got a few things under your belt. And those of you who have been in that position, you know what I'm talking about. I started actually here in California, teaching at San Fernando High School, out in the end of the valley. I think some of you know where that is. We lived in Van Nuys. I came out from KU where I finished in biology and chemistry and started teaching the kids there and sophomores and juniors in high school. And they didn't want to learn science. They didn't care much about science. They just didn't want to, give me a D and let me get on. You know, we'll just do the promotion thing. And I said, well, look, we've got a little simple contract here. I'm going to come today, every day, prepared to teach. I want you here every day, prepared to learn. It's a simple contract. And, of course, a lot of them didn't understand that. They came with no assignments completed. They didn't want to prepare for tests. And sure enough, we had a whole bunch of them actually fail the first 9 weeks. Now, by the end of the school year, we had it reversed so that 80% of the kids actually had earned an A or a B. I said earned an A or a B. Now, that was long before Common Core. It had nothing to do with national standards. It had nothing to do with saying, well, we've got to have rigor. Well, we've had rigor ever since time began. Anytime you have a teacher and a student, that teacher's probing and asking that student to excel, to think, to ask questions, not just keep answering the questions that the kids raise, but ask them, what would you do? What is your solution? How would you handle that problem? Same way with critical thinking. Somehow or another, this nation put a man on the moon. I don't know how they did that without some critical thinking or without Common Core. My gosh, how did that happen? How do we get the assumption that this is reform when for so many years we have been teaching our kids English and math and doing it extremely well? We have so many companies that have created all kinds of technology and software and investments and banking. We're the leaders in the world. And somehow we got it right. It's not rocket science. So as I sat on the State Board of Education in Kansas, I realized that we're part of a pond in a big scheme. And it's very interesting to say, wait a minute, how did we get here? Why is it that very few of the elected officials, such as myself, sitting on the State Board of Education, or the legislators in our state and other states, didn't know what was coming down the pike? Now, you assume when you elect somebody that they're there to make decisions. And for some reason, we didn't know about a lot of this stuff till it's already hit us. We're already committed by our staff, the bureaucrats in Washington and in the State Departments, all made their decisions way before we ever got around to it. Now, by way of introduction, I'd like to find out how many of you folks are teachers in this room right now. Anybody? Wonderful. That's great. Thank you for being here. Coming from a background, as you heard, of teachers, I have tremendous respect for teachers. This is not about teachers don't know what they're doing. This is about let's give teachers respect. Let's give them what they have worked for every single day, taking care of our kids and doing the best job they possibly can. And what I see about Common Core is it's a way to browbeat teachers. It says we're going to use a test called the Smarter Balance, and we're going to say, by God, if those kids in your school don't get a high enough grade, we're going to say every teacher in the school must be bad, based on one test. That, by the way, isn't valid or reliable. Smarter Balance or PARC, either one of those tests that they're trying to develop, have not been validated. They are not reliably able to tell us whether the kids have learned what the teachers have taught them. Now, that's a big issue. Common Core is not just standards, but it's also the way in which they're asking teachers to teach. They want to tell you how to teach math and how to teach reading. And they're doing that by way of the various vendors, if you will, the publishers of the textbooks and the materials. If they are going to sell you something new, it has to say on the cover 100% aligned to Common Core. Isn't that right? So then the curriculum directors say, well, it must be good. It says it's 100% aligned. We're supposed to implement Common Core, so okay, let's go for this. Let's put this in front of our kids. And there's no evidence that Common Core is able to do a better job of teaching our kids than what we currently had. In California, you have good standards since 1997? In Kansas, we did ours every 7 years. Our standards were higher than what Common Core is now. And my gosh, when you ask people to adopt something that you've never tested, even a pilot study, and you want to make claims, it's more rigorous, it's more critical thinking, it's better, we're going to have every kid ready for college and career. How do you possibly get various hundreds of careers taught when you've got a curriculum that's basically a college-bound curriculum? And every career has a variety of different ways it uses math and applies it to the solutions they have to come up with. So the claims are bogus. I'm just an old farm kid. I'm sorry. I grew up in Kansas. We just kind of speak plain. In front of you have 3 documents. Hopefully everybody's got one. Do you all have 3 documents? The first says at the top, and now for the rest of the story. If you don't have one, raise your hand. There's some people around here to pass out. Many of you remember the old guy, his name was Paul Harvey. Huh? He'd always lead with a story, and then he'd say, and now for the rest of the story. Okay? So to make this as simple as I could, I put this together as claims on the left side and the facts on the right. And put it in simple English. When I came tonight, I was given a document that's been put out by your State Department of Education. This document here is the same document we have in Kansas, in Missouri, in Nebraska. Everybody is singing off the same song sheet. It's not even close to accurate. So why would we do that? Well, you have a problem. This document right here, and I'd like to read from what's actually been agreed to. This was signed by our commissioner, and the same was happening in California, other states around the nation, back in 2009. This thing is not new. It started under Bush. The bureaucrats then had a concept of national standards. In fact, national standards have been a big push for about a decade. And so now that you've got a bunch of folks wanting to have a piece of the $4.3 billion in Race to the Top money, they had the big carrot laid out here and says, okay, if you states want a piece of this apple, we're going to give you a chance to get that bite you want to build up your deficit. Remember that 2008 recession we had? All right, states in 2009 were desperate. They said, well, God, how are we going to fund our schools? We need some more money. How are we going to get that? So Arne Duncan had $4.3 billion of our dollars to play with. And back in 2009, they already had these things in the agreement. Now, bear with me. I like to be able to read it from the document itself. I don't want you to feel like I'm making this stuff up. Remember now, we're elected officials. This came to us in a board meeting, and they said, oh, by the way, the governor, in this case the commissioner, had signed a document saying, we're going to cooperate in the development of Common Core standards. Now, our board and every other board in the nation didn't know what that meant. We had never seen the Common Core, didn't know what they were talking about, didn't know. Okay, they said, well, we'll get back to you. All right, if you don't vote on something, you don't see it to vote on, you can't study it, how are you supposed to make a wise decision? So here we are on page 3, it's talking about the federal role. Remember they keep saying this is all state-led? State-led, right? That's supposed to make it right. It wasn't the feds taking over our schools, it was the states. Okay. Now it says here the federal role is the government shall provide financial support for this effort in developing the Common Core state standards and moving towards common assessments such as through the Race to the Top funds. That, by the way, is $360 million for the two consortia to develop the state assessments. And, of course, that $4.3 billion that they held out as a big carrot for schools to come along and be able to apply for. Further, the federal government can incentivize this effort through a range of tiered incentives. I don't know about you, that's a polite way of saying we're going to coerce, we're going to blackmail, we're going to intimidate, we're going to say, if you don't do this our way, you've got big problems with us, whatever that was. We didn't know what that was. A lot of straw men, but no facts to go by. But the incentivize is to say, all right, we're going to then give greater flexibility in the use of existing federal funds. Now, those of you as educators in this room know what I'm talking about, because they called the No Child Left Behind flexibility waivers, didn't they? Flexibility waivers. Our state and every other state, California, by the way, is conditional. Kansas is also conditional, or whether you're going to get a waiver. And I'm thanking California leaders for standing tall and saying, no, we're not going to agree to everything you want us to do. If you think we're supposed to do that, forget it. But the idea of the flexibility waiver is you have 40 specific things, strings attached to that agreement. It's over 300 pages of document between the agency and the federal bureaucrats. And I'm talking about only a handful of bureaucrats. There's 5, maybe 10 at the most in Arne Duncan's staff that are really pulling these strings. And at least 3 of those people were appointed and brought into his agency from Bill Gates Foundation. Now that's a conflict of interest. And they went through the back door to try to make sure those people got hired and put on his staff to be able to approve the Race to the Top applications and come up with these criteria for the flexibility waivers. But the next thing it says now, we're going to revise the state accountability structure and offering financial support for the states and long-term financial support of development of Common Core standards. Didn't they just say in these, they said, no, this is state-led, right? Here right now it's saying the long-term financial support for the development of common assessments and standards. That's in 2009. We as a state board never saw the Common Core standards to even look at, to vote on until 2010, September of 2010. Now remember that date in just a minute. The final thing it says, and finally the federal government can revise and align existing federal education laws. And what they did was they changed the Privacy Act that protects your child's data. It's called FERPA. They did that change in the 2011, December of 2011. It went into effect in 2012.
Doctor, you have 3 minutes.
We have a situation going where you have now, back in 2009, the game plan's already in place. And you think you as teachers don't know, as parents you don't know, we as elected officials didn't know what was coming down the pike. Now we have one other document I'm going to hit on very quickly, and we'll get back to this as we get into our question and answers. But this document right here is the agreement between the states and Smarter Balance. By the way, that's the one that your state right now is trying to divide. We're going to do just reading or math, not both. And thank goodness you're doing that, because this is a big pilot project. Basically an experiment, right? This is an experiment using our kids as guinea pigs. This document in the first paragraph is between the states and Smarter Balance, and it says, the purpose of this agreement is to establish a framework of collaboration for states in supporting assessment of common standards. Now let me point out to you, this was signed in January of 2010. The boards did not see to even read the standards till like June or July of 2010. In our case in Kansas, we didn't vote on them till October. 10 months later, our board actually got a chance to vote and discuss the Common Core. The commissioner had already signed us up to not only the standards, but also the assessments. So if you wonder why there's a confusion going on, there's a lot of reason for that. And parents all over the nation, this is one of hundreds of meetings that are going on in almost every state. In New York, Louisiana. In Louisiana just 2 weeks ago, they had a group, many more people than in this group right here today, that came in and says, hey, we want out, and their board voted 14-0. 14-0 to get them out of Common Core.
Thank you, Dr. Chappell. You will have the wonderful opportunity to ask him all the questions that you've just written down at the end of the show. The reason why we're limiting the speaker's time is because your time is as valuable. We want you to have the opportunity to speak with these really wonderful people. So I apologize, Dr. Chappell. We're trying to stay right on time, but I thought that was a pretty good ending.
Thank you.
Our keynote speaker tonight is Brad Dacus, the president of Pacific Justice Institute. You can find out a lot more about this at pacificjustice.org. Give it up for our keynote speaker, Brad Dacus.
And I want you guys to know that most of that which you read is true, too. So, it's a lawyer joke. Okay. Hey, it's a real pleasure to be here. I want you to know that as an attorney, I want to be very objective. I want to look at it with both eyes open when we look at something critically and try to look at all angles of it. But I also have to be honest with you. I have 2 kids. I know that a lot of parents out there have kids. And not all parents can put their kids up. Hello, okay. I'm trying to think of a way to justify that statement, but I can't. So anyway, parents, because their kids were taken from, anyway. But the bottom line is, and there's more than just the analytics to it. It's a deep concern for the welfare of your kids. I understand that too. And we at Pacific Justice Institute take that to heart. We have 5 offices in California. And as said before, we handle more case matters defending faith, family, and freedom on the West Coast than any other organization of our kind, by God's grace. And we're here to serve you. And so one thing for sure is I don't want anyone to leave here with hesitancies about what you're going to do, what are your rights. If we don't answer it today, if you still have these kind of issues and concerns, just contact us, okay? We do all our work without charge. And so just don't worry about that, all right? And besides that, and we at Pacific Justice Institute, we have a motto in life. Don't get angry. just sue. So, no. Oh yeah, that's a joke, okay. So just so you know. Over 90% of the matters we do get involved in, we get resolved without litigation. So our goal is not litigation. Our goal is to get things quickly and expeditiously resolved and amended so they don't, whatever it is, doesn't happen again. Now, I want to talk about first as far as Common Core and what it is. It's a major game changer. I read an article, I guess, in the newspaper that affirms that this change in curriculum and this whole process will be the most radical change in public education in decades. So that is, I think, something that is non-debatable. We're looking at major change. And with change comes uncertainties. With change comes risk. With change often comes fear. Well, I think people need a lot of fear comes from lack of knowledge. So the more we learn, the more we know, the more we can address it and decide what we want to do about it individually and collectively in your community. Now, let's focus specifically on data mining. Okay, that's where the government, under the cloak of this program, may exercise the opportunity or try to exercise the opportunity to gather information about your family, about your children, about your family's religion, about their perspectives and morals and values, and even assessment of their relationship in the family. Now you're saying, now, this is just hype. This is just, mumbo jumbo to try to get people all scared and paranoid, and that's what these organizations do. I want to remind you, before we even look at Common Core, I want to remind you of what happened in California under something called the class test. This is before the Stafford 9 or 7 test. This is back, I guess about 20 years ago. And the state of California decided they had this new assessment test. And what this test did, it wasn't just academic. It wasn't just reading, writing, and arithmetic. This test went into assessing the psychological makeup of the child. Okay, and not just at the senior level, it was also done in the elementary school levels. There are several different levels they gave this test, grade levels. And I think it was 4th, 8th, and 11th, I believe. I'm not sure, but I think that's right. So they went ahead in this test, and for example, specifically, one of the pictures had a picture of a head of someone, and with a big empty space in that head. And they said, pretend this picture is your head. Write the words that express your feelings in this blank space. The feelings that are in your mind and your thoughts. Now, what does that have to do with academic assessment? Not much, nothing. I think it's also interesting to note that the state of California, in adopting this exam, also decided to allow it to be reviewed, and all tests, and the results of those tests, to be reviewed by Child Protective Service agents and for their assessment purposes. This was a part of the program. Now, we at Pacific Justice Institute were very upset about this, and as an constitutional attorney, I was very upset about this. And so what I did and what our affiliate attorneys did is we decided to challenge this. And so we went into court, and we went into 4 different superior courts in California, 4 different counties. And we, through some stealth person, got a copy of one of these tests. And the judge residing in Fresno, for example, asked for them for the state of California to provide them with all the tests. The state of California said, the attorney representing the Department of Education of the state of California says, well, no, we cannot provide that to you, Judge. The judge says, well, why not? Well, you're not allowed to look at it. Just we, the Department of Education, are allowed to look at this test. Needless to say, this judge was very angry. And I just kept quiet. I just let them dig their grave, and they did. To make a long story short, that judge granted a preliminary injunction allowing all parents in that county to opt their children out of that test. Then it happened in Sacramento County. It happened in Riverside County, Orange County, make it, long story short, there was an avalanche of parents all throughout the state pulling their kids from the test, even if they were in a county that didn't have the binding order on it. The test was a flop, they scrapped it, and they went back to academics. But now you know why I'm a little cynical when I look at what potentially can happen with regards to data mining. There is no limit to what potentially can happen. Now, with that said, the question that many of you may be asking yourselves is what right do parents have to opt out their children? And the good news is, and this is where I want to squelch a lot of fear, the good news is we actually have some great ed codes that recognize the rights of parents. So my goal here tonight is for you not to leave here all flurried and angry and upset and wanting to go out and whatever, do something, crazy, or necessarily political even. The reality is that should not be your drive, because California Education Code section 60615 says this: notwithstanding any other provision of law, a parent's or guardian's written consent to school officials, written request to school officials to excuse his or her child from any or all parts of the assessments administered pursuant to this chapter shall be granted. Okay? So that's good. That's good. Now some of you may be wondering, well, wait a minute, you mean a parent can just opt their kid out of any test at all? Is that what you're saying? What about the, you guys, a spelling test? No, that's not what we're talking about. The California Code is very clear when it deals with assessments and what that they address. They don't address regular exams and tests on dealing with material that is covered by a school. And so for that reason, frankly, parents need to still continue to monitor schools. That's very important. I want to right now basically go through the California Common Core data opt-out form. Now, when I say this once again, you're saying, well, wait a minute, what are they doing right now? I don't have anything in front of me of what they're doing right now. I don't want to have to wait, as I've discovered with the class test, to discover what they're going to do or how they're going to do it. I just know as parents, given this change in the breadth of Common Core, it's very wise and prudent for parents to protect their kids. Now, on this form, let's go through point by point. It says, please take notice that pursuant to Education Code sections, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, my child is to be exempted and excused from the following activities. Number one, taking any and all statewide performance assessments, including but not limited by way of limitation to academic, achievement, and annual tests and Common Core interim and formative assessments administered pursuant to section 60600, specifically California Education Code 60615. That's what I just read to you earlier. So that's real clear. You're giving them notice of your rights. This notice, by the way, is very important because it helps to remove what's called qualified immunity from a school district that engages in activities that end up violating the rights of parents pursuant to state or federal law or the Constitution, U.S. state or federal constitutions. Number two, the administration of any test, questionnaire, survey, examination, or evaluation containing any questions or items relative to my child or my personal beliefs or practices in sex, family life, morality, or religion. That's under California Education Code section 51513, and we pass that out to you. And I'm going to be frank with you, it's very blunt. It deals with the requirement for them to give prior notice to parents regarding this and to have written parental consent, permission, before this could be administered. I'm going to tell you something. In California, when people criticize our state, and we have a lot to be critical of, I went to law school at the University of Texas School of Law, and I will tell you that their administrative codes are 1/4 the shelves, the size in the bookshelves, as California's. We've got a lot of laws and codes. I mean, it's a lawyer's paradise, all right? Everyone else pays the price for it. But in those codes, though, in California, we have protections that they don't have in other states. And that's a good thing. We just got to know them and take advantage of them. And this is one of those great protections. Number three, the administration of any test, examination, or assessment as part of a statewide pupil assessment program relative to my child or my personal beliefs or practices in sex, family life, morality, or religion, or any question designed to evaluate personal behavioral characteristics, including but not limited to honesty, integrity, sociability, or self-esteem. That's 60614, and that's exactly what the provision says. Okay, so it's not like you're making up some kind of new language. We at Pacific Justice Institute, and working in this preparation, and I want to thank Walt and others and Tony who participated on this. Our goal is to make it as close and as paralleled to the codes as possible. So that way there's really not any wiggle room for school districts not to comply with this Common Core data opt-out form.
Mr. Dacus, you have about 2 minutes, 30 seconds, but we'll let you finish the form.
Okay, you said 20 minutes and 30 seconds. So no, I'm just teasing. Okay. And then number 4, without getting too much detail, it's dealing with the federal statute, 20 U.S.C. section 1232H. It's very broad. It has tremendous protections, and we put this together, this material, for that purpose of it being broad. As far as ramifications, let's say your child decides you try to opt your child out, and your child has, there's ramifications. They're harassed. They're belittled. We at the Pacific Justice Institute, make no mistake, we will go into court, if necessary, on your behalf to seek declaratory and injunctive relief and any other relief that may be statutorily or case law provided for you in this matter. We don't hesitate. We will take action. We have attorneys up and down the state. We have over 500 volunteer affiliate attorneys just in California alone. All right. So if that happens, that's what we're dealing with. As far as on the schools, should have a keen interest to make sure anything they implement, whether it's through Common Core or not, complies with these codes. And we are more than willing and happy to work with our legal counsel and teachers and administrators in a positive, constructive way to do that. We do it all the time with school board members and superintendents. So we're not, although people talk about our fangs being really big, they're really only about that big, okay? We really like to work constructively, and we have Q&A time, so we'll talk about that later on. But the bottom line is, do not be afraid, be educated, and act accordingly. So thank you.
PacificJustice.org. That's what you want to look at. All right, our next speaker, Tony Doltz. This gentleman here single-handedly funded this event tonight.
Well, one correction. I didn't single-handedly funded the event. I got help from many volunteers, and I thank you all for that. So, as Lynn said, my name is Tony Doltz. I'm the founder of Concerned Parents of Conejo Valley. I'm a parent of 2 children in the Conejo Valley. My son Dylan, who's 12, and he attends Los Cerritos Middle School, and my daughter Sienna, 8, who attends Wethersfield Elementary. My wife Bettina is sitting there with the children. Now we're many here tonight. Some of us are teachers, and others are school administrators and parents. We bring with us here. What we bring here is that we are parents and that we love our children. In November of last year, I ran for school board. Since then, many people in the community approached me about their concerns over loss of local control of schools and threats to their parental rights and right to privacy. Their concerns reminded me of a difficult time in my life. I was born in Cuba, as Lynn said, and in Cuba, a group of central planners overthrew the government and set to fundamentally change society. The regime took people's properties, they silenced their speech, and thwarted their religious freedom. Left with an uncooperative older generation that set to turn children against their parents through a manipulative, centrally planned education. My parents fled, seeking freedom here in America, to protect their children from government bullying. The years have passed, And now it is my turn to fight for my own children. I will share with you the benefit of my experience, so as you don't have to repeat it. I will defend local control of education, our parental rights, and our rights to privacy. So that is how it came to pass that I joined others, many of you here, parents and teachers, and founded Concerned Parents of Conejo Valley. And look at us now. First, we sought information, and now, tonight, we are prepared to take action. For those of us who are here tonight and who are parents, the first thing we need to do is to opt out of data mining. It is your legal right, and there is no negative consequences. I will join you in filling out the opt-out form for my children, and I will turn them in tomorrow. Fill out your own opt-out forms and stay in touch with us. If you have not done so already, please grab one of the registration forms and give us your contact information. This is a growing grassroots movement. You are all part of it. We need to know how to stay in touch with one another. For the rest of us, whether we have children in school or not, there is something we can do that is very important. We have to elect a majority on the school board. Also, you are many here tonight. When you leave here, contact 5 other parents and tell them about how to take action and to join us. I would like to thank the speakers, Brad Deckers and Dr. Walter Chappell. I would also like to thank the many parents who have volunteered their time and the money that they took out of their family budget to bring this information to you and this tool, the opt-out form. Speaking of these tireless volunteers, volunteers are waiting to offer you coffee, cake, and cookies on the way out. So, Lynn, I turn it over to you.
Now, okay, remember, we're being filmed. This is going viral because you're going to share it, right? You're part of a grassroots movement. It's pretty exciting when you think about it. It's nationwide, right? So you will have to sign a release if you come up to the microphone on either side of the aisle. Start making an orderly, civilized line on both sides kindly. And we will call you one at a time. I'll alternate microphones like this unless we just have a few. All right, we'll alternate microphones. And address the person that you have a question for, or tell us right up front if you have more than one question. I think we'll limit you to 2 to start with, 2 questions total maximum. But introduce yourself, first name and last name. We're going to get the releases signed at the end, kindly. It would take a little, well, I guess you can go down the line and get the release signed while we start. And I will start with you, ma'am. What is your name?
Hi, my name is Tracy Dunbar. Mr. Doltz, thank you so much for organizing this, and Mr. Dacus and Mr. Chappelle, thank you for coming all this way. We've talked about tonight assessments and questionnaires, and we all want technology and the best for our children. However, I've been reading and have read firsthand on the Department of Education, the United States Department of Education website, ed.gov. There's a document there called Grit, Tenacity, and Perseverance. In addition to laying out data mining for us, they have on page 44 the latest technology. They've unveiled this. And it seems that General Electric has been working with Microsoft and the Gates Foundation to develop biometric sensing devices to be implanted within the computers that the children will be receiving. All of these pictures are posted on the document Grit, Tenacity, and Perseverance at ed.gov on page 44. They include retinal imaging scanners to the biometric sensing devices register the alertness, awareness of the children, facial MRIs, biometric chair pads and sensing devices to measure squirmability. And in kindergarten, first grade and they're little kids. They squirm. And unfortunately, arousal in the older kids, which is unheard of.
Madam?
How-
Madam,
Yes,
excuse me. Do
question.
you have a question?
I do. This
Okay,
is my
great,
question.
great.
How do we, as parents, combat or opt out of this? This is not assessment or questionnaire. How do we fight this?
Who are
and
you
opt out?
asking? To whom are
Mr.
you asking?
Dacus,
Well-
Mr. Chappelle.
Alrighty.
Yeah, I will
Thank
just
you.
say, I will say right off the bat that this, I think, it'd be new ground, okay? This is new ground, and it's very real what you said, by the way. I affirm that is correct, what you said. I think that we at Pacific Justice would look at this as a invasion of privacy. It'd be totally new territory, I think, as far as case law goes, and it would set new case law one way or the other. But that's our first, my first inclination looking at and addressing it would be attacking it from a constitutional privacy.
But if,
grounds.
but if we know this is happening, that we could be aware of it, and we could be fighting this with you guys.
Right, oh yeah, and if any of you
Perfect.
see
Thank
any of
you.
this as
Thank
is
you.
implemented, let me know.
Yes.
You guys are our watchdogs, so I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Great. All right. I'm going to alternate to this side.
Good question.
Yeah, great. I'm sure all these are great questions. That was an awesome beginning.
Weston, no kids, but I'm thinking about getting my teaching credential. And I was wondering, as a person that doesn't have kids but actually works with kids, as the job, what can I do? Even though I don't have kids in the system, how can I help? And also, just keep that watchdog mentality and what I should be voting. And also, what do you guys think is the main issue? Like, if we change that issue in our education system, would help all the other issues come and align with what we want to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the one thing, if we changed it, would make the most difference?
Well, that's a good question right there, Weston. Who are you asking?
Anybody.
Okay, how can Weston help, and what's the one thing that'll change to make the most difference?
Wow. Let's see. If we got a magic wand tonight, let's see. Which one do we pick?
Well,
It isn't Common Core. We'll start from that. And I'm sorry for my voice. I am suffering from coming in on an airplane and picked up whatever they had on that flight. So you will beg my forgiveness or vice versa. Let me ask you to do this. We have so many things that have to do with changing the way this nation teaches children, particularly the ones at risk of failure, that we should be doing, that we're taking all the oxygen out of the air with Common Core, with all the testing at the end of the year, all the browbeating of teachers, all the claims that the schools are failing. It's nonsense. But until we stop the Common Core, we're in a real pickle because we don't have the opportunity to really get down to more parental involvement, for example. Giving kids a chance to learn some career and tech ed skills before they graduate so they have employable skills. They don't need to go on to high-paid colleges with high tuition and so forth to be able to get a job. So there are many things we could be doing. But this lady's comments about the idea of taking metrics of our eyes and our hands and whether we fidget in the seat, that is off in the bushes quite a ways. I don't know it's ever going to happen, hopefully never, but I do know that there is what's called the National Education Data Model. I'm going to use this opportunity to get to that for just a second because some of you need to know that in 2010, the bureaucrats in Washington did come up with a model they want for every state to collect data. And California has a longitudinal database, everybody else does. It's been funded by the federal government. It's from preschool for 20 years of a student's life.
why do they need that? Why do they want that?
That's the question. Who has any right to that at the state level or the federal level? So in answer to your question, what can you do? What can any of us do? Every single one of us in this room has a role. As a parent, as a grandparent, as a teacher, as an administrator, we have all got the responsibilities to take action. Listen, ask questions, find out what is being taught, what's in the textbooks, what's on the assessments. Are these in fact valid? Do not just assume that you have to go along to get along.
Real quick comment on that too. As far as a teacher, you're a teacher now, will soon be a teacher, is that right?
Working in childcare, not a teacher yet.
Okay, well, let me say to teachers out there, We at Pacific Justice work to give you advice all the time in terms of what you can do, what you can't do. We have a book called Reclaim Your School you can download for free. There's a whole chapter on teachers' rights. But one thing I encourage teachers to do, contact us how these issues, they say, I've been told I have to do this, I've got this new thing I've got to do, what do I do? One of the most important things is to take advantage of your opportunity to let parents know, not just in a very objective manner. You can contact us, we'll help you with some of the wording, but to let parents know of the kids in your school so that they're aware of these of what's taking place, and so that they can then take their own action and seek their own assistance. That's really important. You as a teacher have that right to communicate in a manner objectively, constructively with the parents regarding what's going on, curriculum, books, movies, or whatever.
Thank you. Weston, go on, be a teacher, share the video. Make it go viral. You can do that too. All right. Next person.
It's Deborah Tash. I'm editor of Citizens Journal, and I wanted to know, how do you get this, that it could be sent home with every child in our county, as opposed to just those that happen to download it?
Yeah. Well, I guess
Who are you asking?
Anybody on that
Okay.
panel, we need to get it to every parent.
yeah, it's on our website. So you can download it from our website, pacificjustice.org or pgi.org. But these kind of decisions are really up to the school board. School boards are protected to give notices to parents, provide opt-out material to parents. School boards can do that, and the teachers union may not like it, okay, because the CTA is not exactly what I would say the biggest fan in terms of efforts to protect parents' rights at times, but nonetheless, those are something that a school board can do if they are independently functioning in that capacity.
Are they independently functioning, or do we have to go to the county board?
Well, it depends on, well, you can do also the county boards, but I think many school districts are not independently functioning, but there are some that are, and in those that aren't, I encourage parents or others to run for office. And
Let me follow up on that just a minute. This form, by the way, is one that's been adopted from what I developed and others in the Midwest. So it's being used in Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma, and so forth. It's able to be downloaded as a PDF. So any parent can go to the website, download it, make as many copies as you want, distribute it, share it, and make sure that it gets out. And take it to the school. The action is to get it in the hands of the principal, make sure the teachers that your child is benefiting from also gets a copy, but it needs to be signed and taken to the school.
I have to say, I'm a grandparent, and one of my jobs at the school is stuffing envelopes for take home. And you also have to provide it in Spanish, because there's people that don't understand English.
Good point. That'll happen.
And
And it would be great to just be able to stuff them in all those envelopes, but, as a grandparent, I could be executed.
And also, yeah, you're right. Also, on our website, don't confuse this with the notice of expectations of privacy, okay, which we have for protecting. That's something else you should look at and use. That protects, hopefully, your son or daughter from, with regards to relinquishing their rights when it comes to boys from the opposite sex going in the girls' locker room, the girls' bathroom, and girls' showers. That's something totally different than this, but I strongly recommend you to look at it, but don't get them confused.
Thank you. And our next guest, ma'am, your first and last name?
My name is Fran Austin. I will have a question for Mr. Degas, excuse
Yes,
me.
that's fine.
And I will have a comment for Dr. Chappelle. I did raise my hand since I am a teacher. I'm not very happy about being a teacher, and I'm not teaching now, knowing what I know about the public school system and the way it has been operating. For the comment, I deal with a ministry in New Orleans, in Baton Rouge actually, and yes, they have voted at the school board to opt out of Common Core, but they have been told by the feds that they cannot opt out as a single state, that it must be done regionally. I don't know the conclusion of that. And as for the question for Mr. Degas, how can we reach you locally? And I'm here as a grandparent. That's a bit of a sticky wicket as far as rights if you're not a, quote, legal guardian.
On the latter point, you're correct. You're right. that is a difficult issue as far as grandparents' rights, and parents' rights trump grandparents' rights. That's the general rule. But absent a showing of abuse or neglect or some other issue that could mitigate that. As far as the first part of your issue, we at Pacific Justice have 5 offices in California. 3 are here in Southern California, Orange County, Riverside, San Diego. I would love to open another office right up here in Thousand Oaks area in the future. So
I would love to have you do so.
I'm still wanting to do that, and we're still looking for the resources and other factors to come together to do that. But that's something that we really have been wanting to do.
One more comment. Rather than keep talking about it, action has to be done besides this opt-out form. Because I did send one to the middle school where my grandchild is enrolled, and it was not acknowledged in any way. I think that we have to do not just an opt-out, but a stay-out for at least one day to let the schools know that their superintendent, who was on the dais at the last meeting and who said, I make the rules, allow me to break them, and we all have that on video, needs to be called to account.
Yeah.
I thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I want to clarify something the ladies just shared. This is actually a constitutional issue that has to do with states' rights as well, right? Every state has a responsibility to fund its schools. It's in our constitutions. As state, it's not in the federal constitution at all. In fact, there are 3 specific statutes that say the federal government has no role in education. As far as curriculum, as far as assessments, it cannot tell us what to teach or how to teach it. But they've gotten around that with this idea that these are state-led. Now, one other thing to say too, there are 5 states that never signed up for Common Core. There are 13 states that have, in legislative action this last series of months, through their legislative actions, in Indiana, in Utah, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, you go down a list. And those legislators are saying, no, this is too expensive. It's about a $16 billion investment, if you will, if you call it an investment. Where's that money going to come from? What programs do we have to cut to implement this experiment? So they're saying no on a financial basis, defund it, don't continue with the implementation. There are other governors that have taken the stand. We're not going to release any data from our kids. Georgia's governor has put out an executive order. You could do the same thing here if Jerry Brown decided to do so. But my point is, this is a states' rights issue. This is a major constitutional question, and every one of us needs to stand firm on the U.S. Constitution.
Thank you very much. Next. Sorry.
If I can weigh in on this. Number one, and correct me if I'm wrong, under state law, the school district can opt out of Common Core if they wanted to, even when the State Department of Education has adopted it. Okay, that is on our website. I have the citation there, but if you know what it is by heart, you can say so.
What is your website? Mention the website.
Oh, it's
please.
Concerned Parents of Conejo Valley.
What Tony's referring to on this sheet right here, you have in your hands, look at the bottom section. It says 60618. When you read that, it says the academic content and performance standards adopted by the State Board of Education pursuant to 60605 that was used as standards pursuant to this article are to be considered model standards. When you read B, it says school districts, and this is so important, folks. Any and every school district in California can say, may use these model standards as a guideline in developing district standards. You do not have to go along with Common Core. It is not something that is able to be mandated and forced on you.
I think Mr. Diltz has one more comment,
Yes,
then we'll get back
and
to our question.
This is relatively simple, but you ask, what can we do? Well, we are David and they are Goliath, so we cannot confront them head on. But on the issue of privacy, we have legal rights, and this is going to weaken them, and it's going to increase their costs. and it's going to increase the level of stress under which they're going to be working because they don't know when the next lawsuit is coming. So you are David, and you have a tool, is the opt-out form. Fill it out. There's no negative consequences, and you're going to weaken the beast. You're going to increase their costs. The legislature in California is never going to withdraw willingly from Common Core, in my opinion, unless their costs are greater than the loot that they're getting from the federal government. So let's make their costs higher.
Thank you. All right. To stay on time, To stay on time, I'm going to try and time this now a little bit to about 2 minutes so we can make sure get everybody done so we can be out by approximately 8. Ma'am, your full name.
Hi, my name is Michelle Seifert, and I just want to thank you for having this. I came from Orange County because there's nothing like this going on in Orange County yet, and I want information. They have awakened a sleeping beast in me, and I am not going to stop until Common Core is out of California.
Awesome.
I will protect my child.
Woo-hoo.
I have 2 quick questions. The first one is, has anyone yet put together a timeline specific to California that shows the course of Common Core from inception, such as who actually developed it, how it is connected to the federal government, etc., and what it consists of that I can use to explain to someone who has not heard of Common Core? I am prepared to go sit on a table and chair out front of Walmart with a placard and talk to anybody who will listen to me, but I'm only going to get 2 or 3 minutes of their time. And is there something out there that's very general that can alert people and point them where to go?
I'd suggest you print out a bunch of these copies right here.
Okay.
It's 1 page. It's down and dirty. It gives you specific information. Thank you.
Okay, and the second one real quickly is changes have been made to FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act in 2011, and I actually sat down and took about 5 hours and read the silly thing. Not silly, but it was difficult to wade through it. That now, since 2011, it allows educational agencies and institutions non-consensually, which means without your permission, to disclose personally identifiable information to authorized representatives, in quotes, of state and local education authorities. Does this opt-out form cover that non-consensual information that they're saying that they can give to anybody or a authorized representative without our permission? And how do we verify that our opt-out is being honored?
Yeah, I can say this. You raised a good point, and this is real important to take note of. There's a big distinguishment when you look at, for example, 60607, and it talks about not releasing informations that are, private information. That is limited, I believe, from a legal perspective, I believe, to information that is disclosed revealing the individual. For example, though, if the results of a test are sent and revealed in a macro sense that does not identify the person, I think, frankly, that could be very difficult statutorily to challenge because it doesn't reveal the information of the actual individuals. But I think that's going to be very problematic as government continues to expand its systems, as you will. I think that the trueness and of that anonymity will be subject and challenged and breached.
From what I've been reading, that with the way that the Common Core data mining is structured, that our child receives a personal identification number.
Right.
The teacher also receives a personal identification number. And while they may not be revealing our child's name in the data that they're passing along, the fact that they're collecting so many different data points allows for the opportunity, given somebody that knows how to construct a proper database, can actually put together who your child is based on that information, and that they're collecting, I think I saw a statistic, hundreds of points of information about our children, and it takes only 7 for them to be able to personally identify our child.
Right. And that's what I'm talking about. As the technology increases and this information, it becomes more and more problematic, and I think that's something that we have to keep our eyes open for. You're absolutely right. And as we have to be looking for the breach, and then to move on that breach.
So do we just have to,
Madam?
very quickly, and then I'll sit down. Do we then just ask for requests from our school district to provide us with any requests that have been made for information about our child? Is that how we follow up on it?
I think that's a very good thing to do, yeah. In fact, that's, to be sure and take a look, by the way, of the other sheet that was prepared. He did a good job on this. It's instructions and information about using the California Common Core data opt-out form. And that's one of the points that they cover, is to do that kind of review.
Thank you very much. I can see out in Walmart. Okay, so remember, try to limit it to 2 questions so everybody gets a shot. And your
Can
full
you hear
name?
me? I'm short. Elke Breckenye, hi. I am the parent that brought you this form. My children go to Santa Rosa School in Pleasant Valley District. And I only have a first grader there right now, and I have a future kindergartner up and coming. And when I got this form, they make it look all, rosy and shiny, that this looks great. We're evolving with the standards, and they claim that they're enhancing up to 15% of standards in math and 18% or 8% in English because of this curriculum. And the standards, they claim that they're not telling teachers what or how to teach.
So what's
They're
your
not
question?
telling them what or how to teach. How are they changing anything to enhance standards? I mean, it's so double-sided. What exactly is enhancing these scores if they're not telling them what and how to teach? Isn't that what this was about? Right? I'm just confused. So what is involved in the curriculum that makes it so great?
Yeah, what you have to do is the old phrase, where's the beef?
Yeah. Well, I want to
Where's
see,
the
where's
beef?
the meat and potatoes?
This is
of
all
this?
nice, rosy.
Yes, it is.
phrasing
It's great.
that's
It
in
looks
every
beautiful.
state.
Everybody should read this. It's great.
Yeah, I can just say,
But I
right,
think it's all just,
There's no data, there's no evidence that this is actually going to work.
Exactly.
We have no research to verify it.
So
Yeah.
do you know what's in it?
yeah, let me just comment real quickly on this
Okay.
too, specifically as applied. Where I go to church, there's 4 teachers, okay? 2 are public school teachers, 1 elementary, 1 high school, 2 private school teachers. And the one who's a public high school teacher, he says it's very different. They're already actually using it and implementing it. This is in Orange County. He loves it, by the way.
I hear all teachers love it.
He loves it as far as it's mathematics, because they get into groups and they work it through and they ask peer review questions and they're working it through. And he
Critical
sees
thinking.
the interaction, they're all interaction, and they're learning, and he sees this application, and then the elementary public school teacher, he says the same thing. He thinks it's great, the application side of it, and the interaction of the kids and the group concept. So it's very different.
Okay.
But by the way, the 2 private school teachers that go to teach at schools at a higher academic level, they're both totally opposed to it. One of them went to a thorough presentation, and their private school said, forget this is going to lower our academic
It's gonna lower
standards.
it.
We're not going to do it. There is one private school
She's
in our
gonna cut me
community,
off.
real quick, that is using it, and I think that you need to be aware of that. Just because it's a private school doesn't mean they're not adopting it. There is one in Orange County that is adopting Common Core openly.
Before she
Okay.
cuts me off, you guys said it was either math or English. My school says they're doing both.
Quick question, quick
Which is
answer.
one thing.
They're doing both as far as teaching. There's going to be an assessment, the state assessment at the end. The star is not going to be given.
Okay.
They're trying to do the pilot test for smarter balance with just reading or math.
If I can appeal to the school and give out my opt-out form and sit in front of the school, are they going to attack me? Do I have to have fear? Are they
No.
going to get
No.
less
No.
government funds because my child's opting out? Because they're getting funds. That's what's enticing them to do this. So do I have to fear for it, or can I just go tomorrow and start passing these things out?
There's no fear for the parent or their kid.
Okay.
In fact, for the kids, they're going to be promoted on to the next grade on the basis of what the teachers have already assessed.
Thank you.
It's not on the basis of the year-end test.
Your
Thank
school
you.
dis-
Please have a seat.
Check the school district of your policy, the policy of your school district, to see, I need that food right now. No, anyway, because that's why, and they may have policies regarding outside people coming in and distributing things. I will say this, kids under the Education Code of California, do have actual rights to pass out things, and they cannot be stopped. If you want your kid to do it, that's another issue. Maybe not, but that's something that's protected.
Okay, be careful with that. Okay,
careful.
we have, how many left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. To be fair, please stick to 2 questions, well stated, quickly answered, so that he can eat and he doesn't pass out. We can get you out on time. Unless you really, really are involved and enjoy this, please, we'll go overtime if you'd like. Okay, but those of you that must leave right at 8, because we said we would finish by then, don't be shy. Go ahead and leave. But let's try and get through all these questions quickly. Ma'am, your full name.
Hi, my name is Ellen Frank, and first of all, thank you to everybody, and I'm relieved to see all the support here because it's been feeling really scary. My first question you partially answered. My daughter goes to a charter school. It's got some independent study and some classes. When we last year, when we decided to attend this school, we had to sign an agreement that she would take STAR testing. Well, they don't have STAR testing anymore. They have the Common Core testing. Am I breaking the contract? Does my daughter have the consequence of being kicked out of the school if she doesn't take the test? A. And the other thing I was going to ask is regarding charter schools. As far as my limited knowledge, but I do have some, with charter schools, they have to follow their original charter, or the school can be closed. There's several charters in the Conejo Valley that I don't see how Common Core really applies to them, and so I wanted to know about that. And if you have independent study, how is your child supposed to take a math test where she's working with kids, he or she is working with kids that they don't normally work with?
Okay, that's 3 questions. Who would like to answer?
Yeah, as far as the STAR test, your child can, even in the charter schools, we would contend that they can opt out. We would defend the right to opt out of it. One thing you need to know about the STAR test or the Common Core test down the road, it is rumored, as we understand it, that they are working on a resolve to, as far as universities, to require such test results for students coming from public or charter schools. That is a real impact down the road that we're going to have to deal with. The ACT and SAT modifications of that to comport with the curriculum and the processes of Common Core is something else that's being considered. And that's, I believe, the reason why you're going to see private schools, many of those decide to choose to go ahead and give into Common Core so students can be prepped. I'm not so sure that's really necessary for students to still academically do well on such testing, but that's a real threat also that's coming down. Even though right now you have the opportunity to opt out, it's a real threat.
Let me speak to that ACT for a second. I apologize for my voice, I'm sorry, but here's the deal. Here's ACT saying specifically in the Washington Post, ACT is not planning any content changes, and only 24% of admissions officers surveyed said they should change. There is nothing in Common Core that says they're college ready. We have no data. There's no data to show they're any better than what you were currently teaching. I was on the faculty at University of Iowa. I've developed tests, as she pointed out, that have been used in 16 states. Smarter Balance is not valid. It's not reliable. It'll take years before we can verify it. In the meantime, ACT is saying we have 50 years of data, and I've talked to their managers, and they say we are not going to change it and in any time in the near future, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. So please don't have folks use that as a reason for private schools, public schools, or parochial schools. Say, oh, well, if we don't teach Common Core, our kids won't pass ACT. That's nonsense.
Right now.
Right now, that's not going to happen.
Thank you very much. Madam, first last name?
Yeah, hi, my name is Joan Davidson. We came up here today from LA County. Presently, California has not received a waiver for No Child Left Behind, meaning that we're still under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, known as ESEA. All curriculum being taught must be evidence-based practiced. How then can districts use Common Core materials that have not been evidence-based practiced?
Well, because Arnie Duncan is incentivizing districts.
So are we breaking the law? Is California technically breaking the law? We do not have a waiver.
He wants people to go along with his program. This is his deal, right? So if you keep pushing companies and his bureaucrats to keep forcing this out on the schools, everyone's going to be looking the other way. But as far as complying, no, there's about 10 states that currently do not have, quote, the flexibility waiver. California is one of those, Kansas is another. And the more the Kansans and Californians stand tall, you're going to win. Because there's no way they can punish this state and make any difference. They're threatening to hold $15 million back. It'll cost this state $2 billion to implement Common Core.
And just one other quick question. I'm a teacher. Is data being collected on teachers through this whole curriculum process?
Well, that's the other thing that hasn't come out tonight. For the youth teachers that are in here in this room, this is the contract between Smarter Balance and the U.S. Department of Education. And it's describing on page 2 the fact they want assessment data. This is some results expected. If you're going to get $179 million, they want you to do this. All right? It's going to provide individual student data for college and career and produce data including student achievement data and growth for individual principals and teacher effectiveness for the purposes of evaluation. That's in the contract with Smarter Balance. They want to collect the data. So the purpose of this form is to say to you folks, hey, cut it off at the pass. If you don't provide the data to begin with, they can't mine it. They cannot take what they don't have.
Thank you very much. Travel safe home. Sir, what is your first and last name?
My name is Bill Andrews, and I have three children who are in public schools. A couple of points to things that were already mentioned. There was a Florida elementary school where retina scans were done without parents' knowledge. So if you,
what school was this?
It was in Florida.
In Florida.
I saw it on the Blaze, so you might do some checking there.
Thank you.
Also with the SAT, the president of the SAT was actually part of the board that developed. The new president of the SAT with the College Board came from Common Core, from the development.
Yeah, and he's made a bunch of claims, but so far he hasn't got any powder in his musket. Okay?
Okay.
It'll take 5 to 10 years before they can make any changes that anyone's going to buy.
Okay.
Did you have another question?
Yes, I have a specific question.
Okay.
Okay. So on Friday, my divorce was finalized. So now I have a. Me too. It's not what that's what I signed up for. So the form has parents and guardian parents. So if I want to opt out, and my ex says no, I don't want to opt out, how does this work?
That's a good question. Next question. Yeah. I think, well, it's generally the person, there's usually one parent that has help me, I'm not a family law guy.
Primary.
The primary.
Right, so I wasn't in this, I had no idea I was coming to this until after I signed the agreement. But there was joint custody, and I said, no, I'm not signing, I said, I want joint custody. I don't want a primary parent. Mm-hmm. We're both going into this. So it's 50-50. Mm-hmm. But her lawyer was saying, oh, it's just a situation where if there's an emergency situation at the school, they need to know who to call first, and so that's the only reason why you would have a primary. But
you stand tough.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have the answer, and it's something we will.
Could you talk to one of your staff and maybe work this out?
Actually, but seriously, we will be happy to research that, because that's an
yes.
answer I should know. So that's a good question.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking.
Remember the website? Please
Yes.
announce your website again.
It's PacificJustice.org or PGI.org.
Right, it's on the back of one of your forms.
He will
By the way,
help you.
fill out those sign-up sheets, everyone, because we're going to be keeping you guys updated with information that we're doing, as well as this organization. as well.
Okay,
Bill-
Tony has a
yeah,
comment for you, sir.
Bill,
Yeah.
on your registration form, write out that you want an answer on that.
Okay.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you.
Good. Madam, full name, please.
Hi, my name's Amber Talbot. I don't know about all you, but I just want to make sure that I'm understanding all this. So when we signed this California Common Core data opt-out form, does that mean that they will not be taking the test that is coming at the end of the year? Because I know my daughter's school is starting that test this year.
You have the assessment test, achievement test, right.
Yeah, so
That
it means
means
that
that
they will not be.
well, that means that they should not be
Okay.
taking that test.
But-
And you need to, let me say this, you need to follow up with the school, because whether it's deliberate or accidental, although I've seen a lot of accidentals happening at one time in certain schools or school districts, so sometimes what's accidental, I don't know, it may not be. But follow up with them as it gets close to the test. Make sure you talk to the teacher, make sure you talk to them, and make sure that they respect that. And also I encourage you to even send a reminder via certified mail if necessary, if you have any suspect at all as to whether they're going to comply with your request, to go ahead and do that prior to the exam.
And my second question is that if they don't take that test because of the STAR testing last year, my daughter got put in a GATE class. So if she doesn't take this test this year, how are they going to be able to place her next year for her classes that she takes?
They'll do that on the basis of what the classroom teachers have been assessing the whole year.
Okay.
They give monthly or weekly exams, and they'll know what that child has learned.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. STAR test? No?
Smarter Balance.
Oh, smart, sorry.
Smarter Balance is part of the two consortia. They're trying to come up with some way to evaluate our kids, using computers, by the way, to determine whether or not the kid can write or speak or listen. And it's not going to work. They can't get there from here.
Madam, your first and last name?
My name is Catherine Nolan. I have a daughter in the second grade here in CVUSD. And when I drop my daughter off at school in the morning, I have no idea what she does there during the day. I don't know what books they're using in the classroom, and really I have no idea. So how do I know that data is not being collected and tests aren't being given? I mean, how? The school doesn't tell parents when they're doing things or what they're doing to our kids, so how can I know what they're doing and when? And the other part of that is that I've reviewed my daughter's school records, and there's nothing in there. There's no data except notes that I've put in there and copies of her grades. There's nothing in there at all.
You know, that's why this form is broad enough to cover a number of different surveys. I know there's a school district here in California just last week was trying to get a bunch of parents to sign a consent form so they can do a survey on their kids. And the questions they're asking are ridiculous. They don't have any right for that information. So with a parent filling out this form and saying, no, you can't do that, you cannot give my kid that survey, that puts that school district on notice. So if your kid comes home and says, hey, Mommy, I just did such and such, and you say, what? And then you go back and ask, what form did they fill out? Then you call
Civic Justice Institute.
There you go.
But my daughter's so young, she's only in second grade, and she doesn't know what they give her things to do that she fills out all the time. How would I know
The other thing
what's-
that you're having to face as parents out here is these iPads. There's a big push right now in LA, for example, Oxnard, others. They want to say, here's a free iPad. You know, we're going to go one for one. And the problem, of course, is that those IP addresses on those are all tied to Pearson. As soon as a kid logs on any given day, the data is going directly to New York, where their data is in their servers. Now, I would say to any of you, do not sign up for an iPad.
Right.
Simply do not do that. There's so much invasion. Now, they want to sell lots of iPads. I understand. That's a business decision on their part. But from your point of view, your kid is not going to learn anything any better, in my opinion, as an educator, than they currently are with a good teacher and the materials they were previously using.
And they don't have adequate constraints, which LA has quickly learned. So that's another problematic issue regarding that. Also, just so you know, many school districts, even if they seem hostile, embrace teacher assistants. We need volunteers but our problem is, we're in Southern California, so our houses cost a lot. Both people have to work. But if you're in that situation where you have the time, being a teacher's assistant is an excellent way.
I do volunteer in the classroom, and I
Awesome.
see the kids logging into 2 different computer programs and doing all kinds of things, and what are they, and they're logging in, so they are collecting information. but I don't know if any of that breaches the things here. Is there any way, as a parent, to find out what, if they're,
Remember
if
the
I
phrase,
fill out that
trust
form?
but verify? All of us as parents have to become more involved in what's going on in our schools. And one of the things that's coming out of these meetings all across the country is that parents are standing up. One of these ladies here earlier is talking about, hey, I'm really upset. You don't mess with a mama grizzly. The mamas in this room are saying enough of this. And the more you get involved, the better. Thank you.
Okay.
If I could make a comment to this lady.
Quickly, please, very quickly.
A lot of the schools where my kids go to, I get the logins for their programs, and so I can actually watch them log onto the programs at my house and see what is being taught and what's being required. So
That's great.
maybe something you want to look at.
You know, you might also want to have little forums among yourselves. Ladies get together, men and women get together in the neighborhoods, or have your own separate little meetings, coffee clutches somewhere, Starbucks, and start to help each other as well. Get to know each other. Sir, your first and last name.
It's a great idea, actually. My name is Joe Panzarello. I'm the field coordinator for the John Birch Society for Southern California. And the Society puts out the New American Magazine. And we have reprinted articles all the time, especially on this particular topic. If you'd like to learn more about how to get those, please talk to me afterwards. Is there going to be copies of this video available
Tony?
to us? The first question tonight?
Yes, it's going to be posted in YouTube and also our website, Concerned Parents of Conejo Valley.
And you're going to share it with everyone.
Great. I've got people right in this neighborhood that I'd like to share this meeting with tonight that couldn't be here. My question is for Walt. Thank you so much, Walt, and thank you, Brad and Tony, as well. Walt, you had briefly touched earlier on the topic of a national school curriculum violating federal law, and about how they're trying to skirt that with going through these governors and going through the states and trying to convince everybody that it's a state-led issue. Is there any way to potentially get around that and get some sort of either legislation going or some sort of legal action that we can potentially charge people with violating federal law?
Well, I'll handle the education side, and Brad will take care of the legal side. As far as charging people, that's his, I'm saying to you simply, this is a states' rights issue, and every state legislature controls the purse strings. If they decide not to fund Common Core, they can stop it immediately, and that's what several states are doing. You have other states that are saying, we're not going to allow any data to leave this state to go to the feds. So they have a separate bill for that. They have a separate bill for testing. Say, we're not going to comply with any national tests. We'll do our own, thank you. We've done it well in the past. We're going to continue. So they're cutting up the pie into smaller pieces and taking separate bills to stop it in various places. The core subject, it's not rocket science. You can teach reading and math. We've been doing it for decades. There's nothing necessarily wrong about Common Core in that regard, except for it leaves a lot of stuff out. It doesn't have high enough standards. In many cases, the states had higher standards. Right. California was one of those. Massachusetts another. Their standards are much higher than Common Core. And so now we're in a situation where we're saying, yes, states can take back. Their right is in their constitutions, not the federal.
Yeah, and I think he answered it, actually. It's really states have the power to do that. I think that we're going to see more and more states critically examine this, particularly as the results of Common Core are compared with states that don't adopt it, like Texas. So I think you're going to see that definite comparison. Also, I just want to comment, as you made a good point, as far as the curriculum goes, there are many people, they look at the math and they say, look, it's more applied, it's more application oriented. That's a good thing. Problem is there's less depth. So someone who goes through Common Core is not going to have the same depth as far as mathematic skills and equations and the like. And then as far as on literature, you say, well, it has a lot more nonfiction literature, teaching more critical thinking. Well, disadvantage. Number one, that's less classical literature. And number two, the critical thinking they're teaching may not be the critical thinking with the philosophy that I want my children to be engaging in. So there is on the substance of it, there is debate. It's something that I personally would opt out of because of in my assessment of what it is and the direction it's taking. That's separate from the data mining.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much, and I'm excited to be here and amongst some true answers and some solutions to these problems. Thanks.
Yeah,
Thank you. I will tell you that we're coming up on 8 o'clock, but you're also engaged. I encourage you to stay and listen to the last 5 questions. Let's just keep the people standing as the last few questions. And remember, even if you don't have coffee and tea with us, drop us $1 into our donation box, okay? Ma'am, your first and last name?
Hi, Beth Miller. And for the record, since I'm on tape, I've got a lot of stuff in my pocket. It's not all. Okay, so what if our principal refuses to sign the opt-out form, and do they lose money if we do this opt-out form?
You handle the first part, I'll take care of the second.
Can you say that one more time? I'm sorry.
We're being told to have the principal sign this, correct?
Right.
So I'm expecting my principal to refuse to sign it.
Right.
Then what happens?
I'll just say real quickly, he can refuse to sign it. He doesn't have to sign it, but you can still make the request, and you can still leave it with him, and as pursuant to this information, you can send it in via certified mail as well. But if they don't sign it, also in the alternative, you can request, well, will you please stamp this as received? That's just acknowledge that you've received it, and have them have 2 copies, one that they keep, one that you keep. Okay, so that's something that they should be willing to do. But they'll look at it, they'll get scared, they'll say, our lawyer, we haven't talked to our attorney, I don't know, we're not,
But they're saying they're not honoring it if they're not signing it. That's what that equates to.
No. If you give them notice of it, you give that to them, they are on notice. And their qualified immunity that they're relying upon has just been breached, if you will, or subject to being breached if they decide to violate your request. Okay, so no, it's still significant even if they don't cooperate. It's just so you have evidence. It's for your evidentiary purposes that they received it, but you can accomplish that by also sending it certified mail, or fax, or email. Right. Anything else? Okay,
The losing money part?
The losing money, no. That's a red herring. Why do I say that? Title I is a separate bill, federal statute. Title II, Title III, you have the school lunch program. That's coming through the Department of Agriculture. You don't threaten people with taking their money away and say, if you don't comply, we're going to leave you high and dry. They're trying that with California, by the way. They want to take $15 million away if we don't do the full.
So I'm in a charter school, so it won't affect them
Pardon?
Financially? It won't affect my charter school financially?
And it won't hurt your kid, because your kid's going to go on to the next grade level anyway, regardless of what score they get on that test.
Okay, I have one important question. As far as, it says here, my child is to be exempted and excused from taking any and all statewide performance assessments, including academic achievement and annual tests. Now, can they say we can't grade your child if you give us this form because there's no way to grade them?
We wanted to try to make it broad enough so it would cover those things that are statewide assessments. But the teachers doing the Friday test, the quarterly test, the semester exams, those are all things they have to teach and have to do to verify what the kids have learned. This is not taking away from any of the responsibilities the teachers already have. It's just saying that the schools cannot use the state assessments, and you cannot use the Common Core assessments, which are data collecting right now. There are a whole bunch of identifiers. So let me give you an example.
Quickly, please. Quickly. Pastor Rob
These
McCoy
need
just
to know what's
reminded
in
me
the national
something.
data model. This is the national education data model. It includes the social security number of the child, the birth date, the city of birth, the state of birth, the country of birth, and then they want to track things like the social emotional development of the child. They want to track the physical development of the child. Who's going to make that determination? Who decides at any given juncture between preschool and 20 years of your life how socially adjusted you are? You're going to leave that to somebody to put it down as a code? And then we have here, they want to know about the whether you're receiving mental health services, whether or not you're supervised by parents or by somebody who's 15 years or older or 15 years or left, and for how many hours a week. 15 hours or more or less, who cares? Why does that need to go to the federal government? So when you
Right.
say right up front, we're going to you sign this form, you turn it in, your school's not going to lose money, and the data hopefully will never leave. And I say hopefully only because if you as parents go in and verify it and check and ask, they're going to either tell you the truth or they're going to be lying, and you're going to find it out eventually.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. Now, Pastor McCoy just reminded me that we have child care today, and the folks that are taking care of the children have to leave pretty soon. So that's why we are going to try and speed it up, even though this is infinitely interesting. I'm sorry I'm rushing you, but that's one of the reasons why. Sir, your first and last name.
First name Earl, last name Negretti, and thank you for all you guys are doing. It's great to be informed. I have 3 independently homeschooled children. Should I sign this form?
No. Homeschool children? No. I think you're fine, you're protected. You're not part of an independent study program, you're just homeschooling on your own.
Right, not part of a charter.
Yeah, as of 4 years ago, the courts in California were very clear, in a very important case we were a part of, declaring your rights to homeschool. You do not have to be a credentialed teacher, and you don't have to register it with or you don't have to be a part of a local school district per se. So you still have the freedom right to do that, and if you're challenged in any way, give us a call.
Yeah, okay.
Great question. Okay.
I think you already covered it because you talked about the ACT test, but are we going to be hampered in any way on SAT, those kinds of tests, because we're not teaching Common Core?
Well, Walt's more optimistic on this. I'm a pessimist because right now we don't see it, I agree, but on the SAT, 5 years from now, 7 years from now, 10 years from now, I mean, I don't see...
There'll be another fad.
Okay.
This pendulum just keeps swinging. I've seen this so many times in the last 50 years.
Okay,
There'll be another latest, greatest thing, and everybody will be saying wonderful things about that one.
You know, I have one more question about children who have already graduated from the public school system. I think this covers till 20 years old. They're trying to track the children. Do they sign this and turn it in to whom?
It's a pipe dream. I don't see how they can possibly track kids, after they graduate from high school or drop out. They want it to go into the Department of Labor, Department of Commerce back in Washington. They have no right to it to start with. Don't give it to them, and it's going to collapse of its own weight.
Okay, so is it true it goes to 20 until they're 20 years old?
Well, more than that.
Okay.
It's pre, which means like 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. Till you get to kindergarten. Then you got 13 years, so you're up to 16 years, and then they want to go another 4.
Right, so if they're in college, they're not getting reported upon?
Yes, that's what they intend to try.
Okay, so then
whether they succeed is another
Sir,
question.
sir, this is your 5th question. Okay?
So then I just don't know.
You may
if they did-
speak with him a little bit
If they're
afterwards.
no longer in
We're
public
trying to get
schools, I
everybody
would not
on.
have them fill that out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Madam, your first and last name?
Hi, I'm Ellen Knowles. I live here in Thousand Oaks. I don't have a child in the district anymore. He graduated, thank goodness. But I still think it's important to still be involved in this cause because of the children that come after. And we're hearing all these anecdotal stories about children that are being thrust into this new system, and they're failing right off the bat because they don't understand this new structure of learning. And there have been kids coming home in tears and not doing well, failing tests that they normally would have done okay on. And so I was wondering if so far up to this point in the execution of this, have you had any lawsuits pertaining to this, to parents with kids that are distraught or traumatized, or has anything like that happened yet? And do you foresee something like that happening in the future?
Distraught, upset because it doesn't make sense or it's hard for them to understand. I don't see any...
Failing.
Right off the bat, I don't see an angle there to litigate on that point. I don't. So maybe there's a new angle to it that we'll see when that comes up. We haven't had any cases like that at this point yet.
The difference between the way it was done and the way it's been done seemed to be so different.
Right.
That I'm hearing people suspecting that maybe like a certain well-known website that we recently heard a lot about, it may have been designed to fail. in order to thrust us into a different kind of a situation. So I was just wondering if you had to speak anything to say about that.
I want to pick up on what you've been saying. There was a hearing, a legislative hearing in New York about a week ago. And I provide the web link to Tony here. He hopefully will post it. But school board presidents, superintendents, see, New York is about a year ahead of us. And most of the other states, they rolled it out in New York and Kentucky, tried to get them to be the guinea pigs up front. And so those teachers and those parents are as livid as you folks are here, even more so. They had a child psychologist coming in saying, my God, I've had a 5 times increase in referrals to my business for self-mutilation, for depression. I've got more kids on medication now than ever before. And you listen to those stories, and you listen to teachers who don't want to come back to school. They don't want to teach anymore. They want to give up. They say, enough of this. We've taken the joy out of learning. And when you say we're going to have standards that say what to teach, that's one thing. But now they say, here's how we're going to teach math, and here's how we're going to teach reading. And I've been in so many meetings. I was in a meeting of Catholic parents here, and there was a crowd about this size. And they were saying, my God, what did you get us into? Why are we doing this? We can't see the math. We never understood how you're supposed to get, 5 plus 4 is supposed to be 9, but you can take 4 plus 4 plus 1 is 9, and then you can take 5 plus 5 minus 1 is 9. The kids are supposed to explain as kindergartners and first graders how you got to that answer, and you can write a master's dissertation on that.
Thank you.
We're
Thank
playing
you.
games that we've got to stop.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There will be one more person after this gentleman who will be coming forward just for a very brief announcement. Sir, your first and last name.
My name is Gerald Yankee. I'm a grandfather. I have 2 grandchildren in a Catholic school in Los Angeles County. I just found out this week that they all have iPads. Every kid in school has an iPad. It's got the school logo on it, and all the kids are excited as heck to have that iPad. That's a comment. The question is, if the government has been data mining information already, and we opt out, how can we make sure that that information is destroyed?
Once they got it, they got it. The best thing to do is to stop it from any further collection. The innocent part is when parents sign their kids up and enroll at school, they think they're just giving it to that school to use to help their kid learn in that school year. And unfortunately, it's going beyond that. These are what's called student level data. And one of the things about this Smarter Balance, again, is to say we want to make sure that we get all kinds of data when that child fills out that test. All the identifiers go with their answers. So on page 10, one of the things I want you to be aware of is section 6. It says the grantee must provide timely and complete access to any and all data collected at the state level. Now, this is the contract that California and 28 states have signed with Smarter Balance, and Smarter Balance then signed with the U.S. Department of Education. It doesn't say some data, it says any and all. Folks, if that doesn't wake you up, I'm not sure what will. You've got a chance to take action tonight, fill that form out, take it into school, monitor, go in, find out what your kids are actually doing. And when it comes time for the standardized tests or the iPads, for example, say, no, thank you, we're not going to have the iPad. Our kid is not allowed to use that. And they're going to say, what? And you're going to say, well, those iPads were sold on the idea that somehow they're better, but what it really is a major series of corporations, including the folks at Pearson who are writing supposedly curriculum to go on them, but we're finding the modules are not complete, they're ambiguous, the teachers don't follow them, and the kids don't understand them. But it's fun to have a little toy there. You can get out and play.
They love it.
Thank you.
Yet every time you sign on to that thing, you're logging into Pearson's database.
Thank you. Did you have one more question? And do we?
I do. I'd like to ask it.
Very, very quickly, nutshell response.
Why does the teachers union, why are they opposed to the opt-out? You mentioned it earlier, that teachers unions do not like this. Why is that?
I can say real quickly and easily. I was debating a member of the representative of the CTA dealing with an issue, I think it was the voucher program, and he said, do you mean to, this is his quote, do you mean to tell me that you think parents know more about what's best for their education than the educational experts in Sacramento? The debate was over. The audience almost stoned him. But that, I think, answers the question. And we have to keep them in check. It's a part of government that must be kept in check, or it will run us over and deprive our rights and at the expense of our children.
The teachers union in New York, if I could follow up on that, the teachers union is asking for a 3-year moratorium on any testing. They say it's not working in our schools. Please stop it now. And particularly don't hold us to the account of saying, all right, we took this test at the end of the school year, now we're going to assess and evaluate every teacher in the building. So this is becoming much clearer for those schools in those states that have been using Common Core. They're saying enough. Please do not continue.
And we at Pacific Justice, by the way, defend the rights of every teacher who no longer wants to be a part of their union to have all their dues diverted to a charity instead of their union, a charity of their, so just so you know.
Thank you very much. We have, what's your first and last name?
Tyler Balsoni.
Who is his parent? And do you have a release for him to be on film? You got a release. Great. Tyler, what is your question or your comment?
I have a question. How can I be involved with my friends? Because at LAUSD, the sheriffs go into the school and get this paper, and they got to fill out some information. So how can I be involved and stop this?
The sheriffs came to your school or in LAUSD?
LAUSD, and I wonder, and my friends are like, and I'm just mad, and I feel like, what can I do to stop this? And how can I tell them to say no and be more involved and say no to this and say that don't answer the question or just don't even answer or something or opt out.
All right, our future governor of California is already involved. How old are you, Tyler?
10 years old.
All right.
10 years old. That's awesome. My daughter's almost 10. I will say I see a wonderful future. Okay, no, it's too cool. No, but anyway, I will say if the questions being asked of you are not school questions like math problems or English.
No, it's not. It's all like, do you play this video game and all that? And your
questions that have nothing to do, more like your personal life or what you. Then you should just say, you know what, I can't answer those questions without my parents' permission. So you need to call them, and we need.
I would like to tell my friends how just to say no, get out.
Yeah, and you could do that. You say, you know what, just tell them if you don't want, say you don't want to have to answer those, and just make it clear without my parents' permission, I'm not going to answer those. And you can make that statement and just stand by it. And I'm sure that one way or the other we'll take care of it.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Thank you very much, Tyler. All right, I want to thank our pastor, Tony Doltz, for putting this together, Ted Takis.
Yes.
Mr. Dacus, Brad Dacus, and Dr. Walt Chappelle, thank you so very much, coming all the way from Kansas. Thank you. You're awesome. Share the information. Hang around. Chit-chat with us. They'll be here for more questions if you have them. Thank you very, very much for coming. Don't hesitate to hang out a little while. Thank you.
you.